Hi everybody, this is Lainey at Camp Joy Farms. I hate to piggyback off of somebody else's video, but I think I might do it today because it impacted me so much this morning when I listened to it. It was Danny at Deep South Homestead, and it was a video that he did on flash droughts. I watch their show all the time. I watch their videos because, well, I like them, but because we don't live that far from them. Geographically, as the country goes, I live pretty much level with them. They live in Mississippi, I live in Louisiana, but pretty much level as far as just if you marked out 2 dots where my place is and their place is. So I trust a lot of their advice because it applies to me. It applies to my area. Everything's a microclimate. They did get a lot more frost this winter. I didn't get any. I can't even tell you of one day we really got a frost here. But he got a bunch of them. So there's different microclimates. He's surrounded by trees. He's got trees on his property, and he plants a lot of trees. I don't. Let me show you. This is my microclimate. The trees that you see in the horizon are on other people's property, and they're way away from my house. I have a few little brush trees right there by the lake, but that's it. Everything that I own, our house, our sheds, everything, our gardens, sits in full sun. No break whatsoever. So we have different microclimates. Mine is sand and rocks. I live on a former gravel pit. It's wide open. There's no trees. His is more rural. But I still trust their advice because geographically we do live near the coast. We get all that weather that comes out of the Gulf of Mexico. We both have pretty much the same temperatures, pretty much. When I'm in a drought, he's in a drought. So when he got on there this morning and started talking about flash drought, a concept of flash drought that he's just now hearing about, that he's really never heard about before. It's kind of like a drought that's just concentrated in time in certain places and sometimes even on certain plants. And I'm gonna tell you what, I have suffered from that this year. I have had that happen to me too, and I can't explain it. And it's been a little bit embarrassing. It's been a little bit embarrassing because I was having better luck growing things the very first year I ever gardened when I knew nothing than I have had this year with a lot of experience and a whole year's worth of plotting and planning. This is what my Mosby Prolific corn looks like right now. Now it's looked this way for 2 weeks, but it went from being green and healthy looking and tasseling. You can see that it tasseled, and I was over here one day doing a video and I commented on how I wasn't seeing any ears, and all of a sudden I looked over here and I saw an ear and got all excited and came over here and saw the silks growing on an ear. But folks, that one particular plant put off 2 ears, and another plant put off 2 ears. Out of those 4 ears, 3 of them were viable. None of them were the size and shape and scope that Mosby Prolific corn normally is. It was thin, skinny corn, and I just was able to scrape a little bit off of it, but it wasn't much to it. Mosby Prolific is an old heirloom variety that's very popular, because when it puts off corn, when it's healthy, it puts off ears that are like as long as from your hand, top of your fingers to your elbow. They're long, they're beautiful, the kernels are white, it's a sweet corn. And the first time I grew it, which was last year, it did so much better than any corn I had ever grown. I was so proud of it. It made me feel like I could grow corn. I was a good corn grower. Because that Mosby Prolific just did so well. I even shared the seeds with Coach London, the man that I interviewed a while back. If you want to go look at that video, it's called Freddie London for the Love of Gardening. And I shared some seeds with him and bragged on them. And every time I passed his house in the last few months, I don't think his corn had any ears either. He grew mine, the Mosby Prolific, plus he grew some G90 corn. And I didn't see very many ears on any of it. And that was at his place down the road. We don't live but a couple of miles from each other, so we have the same kind of microclimate. So I can tell you, if Coach London can't grow it, I can't grow it. That man knows what he's doing. He's grown corn for years, and his corn didn't look any better than my corn. My corn just immediately quit growing, didn't put on ears, and that was that. And it was done. And within a week, it looked like this. It was brown, crunchy, and gone. And it was such a disappointment because this is 240 row feet. 240 row feet of plants. And I didn't get but 3 years off of it. And that's a shame. Well, I decided to bring the show up under my carport because it was just too hot out there in that sun. It's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Wednesday. It's June 29th, I believe. And so I just had to come up here under the shade. I couldn't just stand out in that sun by that corn talking. So one thing that Danny pointed out, and I agree with, is that this flash drought is not a water event like most droughts are. That's what a drought is, when lack of water for an extended period of time. This was no water, but the plants that seemed to be affected the most seemed to have like a radiation burn from the sun, like the sun just burnt them. They didn't just shrivel up from lack of water. It's like they were scorched earth. And I agree with that assessment. He's getting information in different ways, and he's doing research. I haven't done all that yet. I'm just taking in what I'm hearing, but it makes sense to what my plants did. And it makes sense because I know that Danny really had a lot invested in his corn. My corn, I was just growing to sell a few years to people and put some up in my freezer. But his Danny corn is something that he monitors. He really worries about because he developed that corn and he needs to keep propagating it to save seeds so that he'll have stock for himself, stock to give friends of his, but also they sell the Danny corn seeds on Etsy. So they had been telling people that if the corn did good, they were going to restock their Etsy store and sell these seeds. So he was really on top of monitoring his corn, watering it all the time. He said that he put the hose down in the rows and just watered it just about every day, if not every day. And I didn't do that. I did try to water my corn and keep up with giving it some hydration, but I was not doing it every day. So in the end, I kind of blamed myself, and I was like, oh no, I just let my corn die. Maybe I should have intervened. This was a worse drought than I thought. I didn't really understand that I was losing it. But at the same time, he was doing all that he needed to do, and his looks like mine. It still does. So the theory of flash drought and having the fact that your plants, some of them look like they suffered from sun radiation, too much radiation from the sun, I can agree with that. My cowpeas are the easiest thing that I ever grow. You can stick cowpea seeds in the ground down here in the South, and not only will you get them, but a lot of times they'll volunteer and come back up the next year, and you don't really have to even replant sometimes in certain areas because the seeds want to just come up so bad. So for my cowpeas to do as bad as they did this year shocks me. It just shocks me. My black-eyed peas and my purple hulls, which have thinner pods than the zipper cream peas. The black-eyed peas and the purple hulls did horrible. They did horrible. They would start to turn a little bit purple, a little bit of color on them. And then if I didn't pick them right then, if I went out the next day, they were done. And I blamed some of it on the wasp situation that I was having, the wasp-like bugs that get on my plants sometimes. And that was a key, but that doesn't explain the pods just simply drying up and the seeds on the inside of them, the actual pea seeds, which they're technically beans, but everybody calls them cowpeas. So the actual pea seeds being dried up and past that normal greenish stage that you usually have when you harvest them, that didn't explain all that. I mean, these peas would go to dried, and not the good dried, not the good dried where you want them to dry a little bit so you can save seeds. It was past that. It was done. They were just done. So usually every year I can save a few seeds off of my cowpeas. And I always have dishes on my counter where I'll throw some black-eyed peas and I'll throw some purple hulls and save them and all. I didn't save anything this year. I didn't save anything. I have plenty of them in backup, so that's good, but I didn't save any of them. They did that bad. I didn't even want to save any seeds. I really just wanted to find the ones that I could harvest and get what I could out of the pod. Sometimes you would only get 3 or 4 peas out of the pod that were viable. And I put as much as I could in freezer bags in my freezer. And if anybody in my family needs them, I have them, but I'm not really gonna advertise for sale because I didn't get a whole lot of them. So that was a disappointment. My corn and my cowpeas were 2 things that I was kind of counting on for sales, and I lost both of them. The only thing I was able to kind of salvage was my candy corn, which had gotten damaged in that straight line windstorm, but I was able to harvest some of that, scrape it off the cob, and put it in freezer bags. And I do have some of that still out in my freezer, and I have sold some. So that was the only good point in my corn or my cowpeas. My zipper cream peas fared a little bit better, but they have thicker pods and they also have bigger peas, and they just seem to be a little more hardy in this sunlight and radiation than the thinner walled purple hull and black-eyed peas. So that's my story. It's been a very challenging gardening season because I was not expecting that, and it got off to a slow start. It did. It got off to a slow start as far as plants thriving, but then they took off, and then I was so excited because I felt like I had come through that wall, come through that wall, got to the other side, and things were starting to thrive. And they were green and they were producing, and I was walking out there every day and picking cucumbers and squash and zucchini, and the cowpeas were setting pods, and the corn, the candy corn, was setting ears, and I was just so excited. And then I sat there and it's like flipped a switch, and all of a sudden it was all drying up, and it was just very disappointing, and not what I was really expecting this year. I'll just say that. I'll just leave it at that. I'd be curious to know your gardening experiences though. If you live anywhere, especially across the South, like the panhandle of Florida, southern part of Alabama, southern part of Mississippi, or anywhere here in Louisiana, please let me know how the weather has been for you. Have you lost some crops that you just weren't expecting to lose? Have you had anything that you might think is this radiation burn on your plants? Have they just unexpectedly dried up and died even though you were putting the water to them? I would be curious to know. So this is Lainey at Camp Joy Farms. Always curious to know things about gardening with you, so share with me if you will. And let's just don't let it get us down. I still love gardening. I've been working so hard lately to get this upper garden back in shape because I just really love having a garden to walk through and to enjoy and to look at, and I'm trying to pull that one out. So my lower garden, Richard's garden, I'm not sure. I may just let them go this year. Too much loss and not enough gain out of those gardens. But I'm gonna try to pull out what I can out of the upper garden, plant some new seeds. I planted some this morning, and I'm gonna just see what I can get for the fall out of at least that one spot. So y'all have a great day. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.